MercytheMad here, and today we've got another Isabella von Carstein video. The vampire accounts just have too much cheese to fit into one video, so I had to make a second video to cover hopefully most of the exploits of the vampire accounts. Honestly, I'm probably not going to even be able to fit them into two videos. If you didn't like the previous video because you thought it was too exploitative of the game mechanics, this video is going to have even more broken exploits than the previous one, and it tips about how to confederate all the legendary lords, including the Red Duke, how to get the Subjugate exploits set up a little earlier in the game, and how to survive the early game when you're surrounded by enemies. If you haven't already seen it, be sure to check out my previous Isabella video. Now, if you're having a problem with Tempelhof getting wiped out by Dryker or Sterling before you have a chance to start farming them, the easiest solution is to just farm Manfred instead. This will allow you to start the Subjugate farming on turn 5 instead of having to wait till turn 6 or 7. Just a quick recap of the Subjugate exploit showcased in the last video. When you siege a vampire account's faction's last settlement, after you win the battle, it will give the option to subjugate that faction, which automatically makes them your vassal. Then, if you go into the diplomacy screen, cancel the vassal treaty with them, go back onto the campaign map, attack them again, and then again subjugate them. Then go back in the diplomacy screen, again cancel the vassal treaty. And you can do that infinitely, as many times as you want, to get infinite XP all in the one turn. You won't have had time to finish building the Mausoleum of the Mad Count yet, so you'll still only have your 2 starting vampires, but you will have had time to recruit a total of 4 vampire lords now, including Isabella and Vlad. In order to do that though, you'll have to save money by not recruiting units in the first couple of turns, not raising any dead, and just fight that siege of Castle Drakenhof manually with your vampire lords and starting units. So for this first turn of Subjugate farming, you just want to level up Vlad and Isabella up to around level 20 so that they can get Winds of Death. Then you want to level up one of your other vampire lords to level 4 so they can take level 2 of the Children of the Night skill to increase your vampire hero cap by 1. Then you replace that lord with a new lord, level them to level 4, take the skill again, and keep increasing your vampire hero cap by keep replacing and leveling those lords to level 4. The maximum amount of vampires that you can recruit per turn is 2. In order to get the most vampires you possibly can, you need to make sure that you're always increasing that vampire cap by 2 per turn. If you've managed your movement well, you should be able to also siege and occupy Tempelhof with Vlad's army on turn 5. In most of my games, Fort Oberstyre is still there at this point, and I'm able to go on in turn 6 and attack Fort Oberstyre, which is Tempelhof's last settlement, and do the vassal exploit against them as well at this point. Maybe that's because I've gotten lots of hatred from all the factions around me from doing the vassal exploit to Vlad, which directs them towards me instead of Tempelhof. I'm not sure, but even if Tempelhof's gone, you can still just keep doing the vassal exploit to Vlad until you get your desired power level, enough vampires unlocked, and enough high level lords. While you're Subjugate farming, remember to also farm useful ancillaries and traits like Gore Drenched. You get this by raising a unit of skeletons or zombies and then taking them into a manual battle and wiping them out yourself with Winds of Death. After you start doing the Subjugate exploit, your reliability rating in the diplomacy screen will be completely tanked. It will go to very low. Some, if not all, of the surrounding factions are likely to declare war on you. A few people in the comments complained about this and said that the campaign is very difficult with everybody ganging up on you as the vampires with all of the surrounding factions hating you. I've got a couple of things to say about this. First of all, when you first did that exploit, you saw the levels rolling in, you saw your vampire heroes getting leveled up to 40, you took Wind of Death on your vampire lords on turn 5 or turn 7, you saw the dozens and dozens of magical items appearing in your inventory. You knew you weren't playing the game as it was intended. You knew that you'd taken that first step into the darkness. You knew that it was wrong. But the promise of power was too much. And now the cattle come for you with their pitchforks and their torches. They hate and fear what they do not understand. Will you cower in fear? Will you beg for forgiveness? No. Revel in your power and feast on these fools. If you're going to use the Subjugate exploit, then you'll have no reliability and everybody's going to hate you pretty much for the rest of the game. You just have to accept that. But it's very manageable in my opinion, and even kind of appropriate from a roleplay perspective. For those having trouble in the early game, I've got a few tips. First of all, if you're going to use the Subjugate exploit and take the hit to your reliability, lean into it, go all the way. Don't be satisfied with a couple of level 20 vampire lords. Next turn, do the Subjugate exploit again. You'll have 2 new vampires, add them into the stack, increase the cap on your vampire heroes. Then next turn, recruit 2 more vampire heroes. Keep going with the Subjugate exploit. Keep recruiting more vampire heroes and leveling them up with the Subjugate exploit every turn, so that your power level will increase exponentially. Whenever it's convenient and you've got enough movement left on Vlad, allow Vlad to lose a battle against the faction leader of the faction that you're doing the Subjugate exploit to. So if Manfred happens to be spawned at that time, enter into battle with Vlad, retreat from the battlefield, lose the battle, and that will give Vlad's trait to Manfred. If Isabella's around, you may as well give him Isabella's trait as well, so that he'll have regeneration when you eventually confederate him. Once Manfred has Vlad's Ord-killing trait, that means that he'll be able to respawn every 1 turn, like literally every turn, and you get a blood kiss every time you kill him. So from then on, you'll be earning an extra blood kiss per turn. Your ever-growing stable of max-ranked vampire heroes should also make quick work of enemy heroes, so be sure to assassinate enemy heroes that come into your lands for fun and profit. You may be getting attacked from all sides, but you don't need to defend everywhere at once. Really, the only things that are of critical importance are your castles, Drakenhof and Tempelhof, which you need to be growing and leveling up, and your Subjugate exploit city, whether that's Eschen, if you're doing it to Manfred, or Fort Oberstyre, or somewhere else. You need to make sure that the enemy can't wipe that out. Drakenhof and Tempelhof have walls, so you don't have to worry too much about them being taken out instantly. You mainly just need to protect your Subjugate vassal city. Do that by cancelling the vassal treaty before the end of the turn, and then re-sieging. That will mean that attacking armies will only be able to attack your sieging army. They won't be able to attack your Subjugate exploit city. Don't bother building up or defending Waldenhof or Schwarzhafen. If anyone attacks them, just counter-attack, wipe out their armies for extra money and blood kisses. If you're not happy with the growth rate of your provinces, another cheese you can do is to level up the Necrarch skill on some of your lords. So instead of just leveling up to your lords level 4, occasionally level 1 up to level 10 and take 3 levels in the Necrarch skill. And what that'll allow you to do is, whenever you have a chance, just move some of your lords back and park them into your own regions over the end turn. Then you can move them back in and attack and continue to subjugate on the next turn. Then at the end turn, just move them back into your province so you get the growth. If the enemy army is in range of more than one of your armies, they'll take the choice to attack the army with the weakest lord or the one with the least vampire heroes, so that you don't have as much winds of magic. Try to manage which army will be attacked. You can put your most powerful army into ambush stance. That will mean that any army that comes into that army's circle of influence will get attacked automatically by your powerful army. Even if your ambush failed, it should still give you the option to attack them. If you think that you're going to be attacked over the end turn, instead of just leveling your lords up to rank 4 in order to increase your vampire cap, just take the time to rank the last one up to rank 20, so that you've got a powerful lord on the battlefield. If you happen to have a lower level lord that gets attacked who doesn't have a window of death, but you have a bunch of vampires in their army, you should have access to Penumbral Pendulum on one of your vampires. You can use that as the kind of poor man's window of death to do good damage to blobs if you need to. If you're still having problems with losing battles or getting overwhelmed on the campaign map in the early game, just let me know in the comments down below, and I'll try and give you any advice I can. Confederations. You may have seen that your reliability has gone to very low permanently. You can't seem to get it back up, and be worried that you won't be able to confederate any of the other vampire lords. Don't worry, vampire lords don't seem to care about reliability. You won't be able to enter into any probably alliances or non-aggression pacts. The vampires will break their vassal treaties with you regularly, all because of your low reliability. But if you fulfill the requirements to get the confederation, they'll still confederate with you, no problem. If you want all the lords, then you're going to have to wait on confederating Manfred, because you'll miss out on Gorst if you confederate Manfred before around turn 30. You have to wait till Manfred recruits Gorst, which seems to always be around turn 30, 31. So you want to get Kemmler and the Red Duke first. As soon as you feel comfortable with the power level of your stack, send one of your vampires to discover Kemmler and the Red Duke. I usually do this once I've got my first 6 vampire heroes leveled up. I can't give you an exact turn-by-turn guide to confederating the lords, so I'll just give you a few general tips about each. You'll need quite a high faction strength to make Confederations easier. At first, you won't have a very good faction strength because you don't have any units, but as you keep recruiting more vampire heroes and recruiting vampire lords and leveling all of those up, your faction strength will go up until you're one of the top ranked factions. You need 80 positive relations with the target faction. It is possible sometimes to confederate when they have lower than 80 relations, especially if you give them a huge bribe, or perhaps if they've got the defeated trait from their legendary lord being killed in battle. But generally 80 is how much you need. When you first encounter the Red Duke, in order to start those relations rising, you want to give him small gifts. So that'll give you plus 10 relations for each small gift, and it's more efficient to give multiple small gifts rather than a large gift. The Red Duke should be relatively easy to confederate, because if you offer for him to join wars with you, he'll generally be willing to do that. So you can get him to just join multiple wars, and that should start pushing his relations up very fast. Because your reliability is low, you won't be able to get military access, trade agreements, or defensive alliances that I'd usually suggest to take to push up the relations faster, but you'll still be able to get them to join wars and confederation, no problem. If the Duke loses a battle, his faction strength will go down, which will make it easier, particularly if the Duke himself is in a wounded state. So that's the advantage to getting your vampire over there as early as possible, so you can keep an eye on him. If something happens to him, you'll be ready. Kemmler can be a little bit more difficult to confederate, possibly because of his survivor trait. He'll be much less willing to enter wars with your enemies, but you can just give him a ton of small gifts to push his relations up. I usually aim to have his relations heading towards about 160 from lots of small gifts. That should get him above 80 fairly quickly. Although he won't enter wars against powerful enemies, if you invite him into a war against Tempelhof or Manfred after you've destroyed all their strength, he'll quite often join there, and that can give you some plus relations. As with any confederations, it's always good to have a large amount of money in the bank. If you're close but you can't quite get it, a big bribe of 50,000 or something along with the confederation offer can quite often seal the deal. To confederate Manfred, the first thing that you want to do is subjugate him, which will pull him into all of the wars that you're in. So if you're doing the subjugate exploit on Manfred, then he'll already be in all of your wars. If not, maybe around turn 10, you want to subjugate him at least once to pull him into all of the wars that you're currently in. And then even when you cancel the vassal agreement, he'll still be in all of those wars against your enemies. Once you're comfortable to do so, you want to siege his final settlement and lock him in there and just leave that army there permanently sieging him. That way he won't be able to build any units, he won't be able to build up his faction strength, but his final settlement will also be completely protected so that no enemy factions can wipe him out. And just leave him there until you're ready to confederate him. Remember, you have to wait to confederate him until around turn 30, otherwise you'll miss out on Gorst. By that stage, your relations will reset. Even if you were minus 3,000 from subjugate farming him, after 20 turns or so, that'll completely reset. And because you're at war with all of his enemies, he'll have really good positive relations with you. He won't have any faction strength because he's been locked up that whole time, so you'll be much stronger than him, and he should be ready to confederate. You want to break the siege around turn 29 or 30. This will allow Manfred to recruit Gorst. You can do this by either just breaking the siege and then making peace, or you can just continue the attack, subjugate him again, which will put you into a vassal alliance with him. Once Manfred has recruited Gorst, cancel the vassal treaty. That will give you the option to confederate. If your relations are above 80, he should be willing to accept. The vassal alliance gives you a huge buff to your relations. Cancelling the vassal alliance will give you a huge negative relations, but the negative won't apply till next turn. So as long as you confederate the same turn, you're fine. By the time you've confederated all of the legendary lords, you should have leveled up quite a few lords to level 10 and gotten level 3 in Necrarch for bonus growth. This should allow you to get your buildings up to tier 4 and 5 very quickly. Due to the dozens and dozens of vampire heroes you've recruited and the huge supply line penalties from all of the lords with Necrarch skill you have buffing your growth, you won't have any money to afford upgrade buildings, but that's okay. Vampire counts don't need money. When you have enough lords and heroes with the Lawkeeper trait, your buildings are completely free. At this point, I would give a quick shout out to Legend of Total War, as I learned a lot of these exploits from watching Legend streams. Another problem with making minus 75,000 gold per turn is Bankruptcy attrition. But as long as you got a Sack City and Invocation of Nehek for heals, it's fine. There used to be a number of exploits, particularly for Wood Elves, that allowed you to negate Bankruptcy attrition to your units, but CA patched all of those out. However, since all of Isabella's units are actually vampire heroes, she can simply move them back out onto the campaign map and they suffer absolutely no attrition, even though I'm continuously making negative 80,000 per turn. Although Isabella's vampire heroes won't suffer attrition on the campaign map, the garrisons in her walled cities will suffer attrition. Now, I have been farming these two ancillaries, which both increase income, and I have a crap ton of heroes to put these ancillaries on. So what I could do is get rid of all of my armies to reduce the supply line penalty, and then move all of my heroes with the money-making ancillaries into my money-making provinces. Just taking the vampires out of the armies so the supply lines doesn't affect them reduced my deficit from 80,000 down to 45,000. Disbanding every army except for my legendary lords brought my deficit from 40 down to minus 2,000. Eastern Sylvania income started at 11,000 and ended up as 17,000, enough to pay our wages. Wait, why does a master of the undead have to pay wages? Isabella doesn't need her walls manned. She makes walls out of vampires. A narrow pass like this is relatively easy to block. As you place each vampire, move past the last vampire you placed and just press backspace just as they get right on top of each other. It might take a couple of goes. Now this pass is completely blocked to movement. Heroes are completely impassable, indestructible terrain blockers, and you can place them like vampire Tetris to make mazes and walls. I didn't find this exploit. Thanks goes to Verinxz for discovering this game-breaking but really fun exploit. These exploits are available to every faction, but no other faction can really exploit them the way the von Carsteins can. No other faction has the ability to recruit or financially support over 100 heroes by turn 50. Put a fence around Sylvania. Block strategic choke points like river crossings to deny enemy movement. Sword of Cain's on sale. You decide to go for a shopping trip but get mobbed by peasants. Don't worry, your indestructible personal panic room can be deployed at any moment. That will keep out the rabble, at least until Isabella is hungry again. A dwarven lord penetrates our vampire wall using his underway stance and gets into our heartland. But am I stuck in here with him? Or is he stuck in here with me? I want to say thanks to my man Verinxz. Helped me out so much with this video. Thanks a lot, mate. That's all I got for today, guys. Don't forget to comment down below if I missed out on any exploits that I should have included here, or if you had any feedback for me. I'm still pretty new to this, so yeah, constructive criticism is always welcome. Thanks, guys.